Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Common Sense with Dr. Ben Carson. I'm your host, Ben Carson. And today we delve into a topic that touches the very core of our society's values, the sanctity of human life. The pro-life movement stands as a testament to the belief that every human being, from conception to natural death, possesses inherent dignity and worth. This movement is not merely a political stance, but a profound moral conviction that seeks to protect the most vulnerable among us. It challenges us to reflect on our responsibility toward one another and to advocate for a culture that cherishes life at all stages. Joining me today is Savannah Craven Antao. Savannah is a young pro-life activist and leads the independent YouTube media channel Her Patriot Voice. Savannah is a New York City-based conservative covering everything from current events, culture, society, and faith. And welcome, Savannah, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Carson.
For those who may be a little bit unfamiliar with your work, could you just share a bit about your background and what led you to become a pro-life advocate?
Absolutely. I grew up Catholic, so I've always had a very pro-life point of view. I'll never forget when a pro-life group came into one of my CCD classes after church on Sunday, and they handed us these little 12-week-old fetal models, and they had little brown ones and little white ones, and we were told throughout the whole day to make sure we didn't drop them because this was, when they're in the womb, they're a real baby. And with me being an only child, I never experienced my mom being pregnant or a new baby coming into the house. So to realize that God made me, even before I was conceived, just blew my mind. And it wasn't until I got into high school, my junior year, where my friend was actually considering abortion with an unintended pregnancy. And I was the only person telling her that she didn't have to do it. And on the morning of her appointment to Planned Parenthood, she actually went to go leave, and one of her car tires had gone flat. And she took that as a sign from God or the universe. At that time, she was not a Christian yet. And she chose life for her child. And her son turned 5 this past August, and he was my little ring bearer in my wedding. And we just couldn't imagine life without him. And it made me think about my mom, when she found out that she was expecting me, which was not intended, and that she chose life for me. I could have easily been one of the statistics of over the 400,000 Black babies that are aborted every single year. And when I found out how much it disproportionately affects our community, that's when I knew I had to start speaking out.
Yeah. Well, what is your understanding of the origin of Planned Parenthood?
Yes. Planned Parenthood was founded by a racist eugenicist, Margaret Sanger. She believed that Black people were weeds. She wanted to put disabled people and minorities on islands away from the rest of society. She didn't think that we should have the same rights as white people. She wanted to create this perfect race. And although Planned Parenthood today doesn't necessarily say that they stand by her still, we see that over 80% of their facilities are located within minority communities. And that's not by coincidence. These people really do want to end Black lives.
It really is quite an amazing story. She was quite a hero in Nazi Germany, and people
Right.
don't kind of realize some of the things that have preceded us in history. But what inspired you to engage directly with the public on sensitive topics? I mean, that requires a little bit of courage.
Thank you. Yes, going out on college campuses. I've been doing stuff on college campuses with Blexit and other pro-life organizations, trying to speak to the people that are most targeted by the abortion industry, which is ages 15 to 25. And I would already go to a lot of these pro-life events and even counter protest some of these abortion rallies. And I'm like, well, I'm already going. Why don't I just film it? And I really realized that I had a passion for talking to people one on one. And I just decided to launch my channel and go for it.
Well, there's an incident where you were interviewing a woman on the street that's gone viral. Can you walk us through what happened in that interview and how did it escalate to a point of physical violence?
Yes. So on April 3rd of this year, I was out filming just like any other day. I sometimes do contract work for Live Action, which is one of the leading pro-life organizations in our country. And they focus a lot on media. And right now it's a big topic, defunding Planned Parenthood. We're giving nearly over $700,000 of our taxpayer money every single year to this organization who exists to end lives. And so I want to educate people about that. So we go out on the street, we're talking with people, seeing what people think Planned Parenthood does, and then versus what they actually do, which is just naming the statistics from their annual report. And it was like any other day. Obviously this woman, she supported Planned Parenthood. She was very aware of what they do. She admitted and agreed that abortion does kill a baby. It rips a baby outside of the womb. So we're asking people's opinion today on Planned Parenthood. Are you familiar with them?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know what they provide?
Yes. Abortions.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Safe abortions.
And there was a point where she made a very bizarre comment where she said that we should kill babies in foster care that might be abused.
I shouldn't be a taxpayer paying child support and food stamps and WIC for women.
You should be a taxpayer paying for abortions?
Exactly. But as for a woman who didn't want the baby in the first place, that doesn't make sense to me. Don't ever sit here and lock yourself down with a man who already told you he doesn't want to be with you. He doesn't want to
agree with you.
I'm not disagreeing with you either. I understand.
You don't get to kill the baby just because their dad didn't want them.
You can.
Should we kill the kids in foster care? And
why not? Why not, if that's the case?
And when I asked her to clarify what she was saying and really make sure that I said it correctly, because sometimes people slip up a little bit on interviews, it's,
right.
And she got very angry when it came out of my mouth. It didn't sound so good when it came out of my mouth. And she just decided to straight deck me in the face.
You just don't understand the magnitude of having a child.
Yeah, well, I'm not the one who admitted they would be okay with killing babies in foster care and killing children that have been abused.
That's not the point. What I'm saying.
That's really. The first punch was with her fist, and the second one actually was with her iPhone, and she broke open my eyebrow, left a huge gash, and I ended up hospitalized and had to get stitches.
Oh my goodness. That was quite an escalation. And just the same thing that she had said coming out of your mouth seemed to be the thing that set her off.
Right. It's interesting when you hear something back said to you, it doesn't always sound that great.
Well, did they ever catch her, and was she arrested?
Yes, thankfully NYPD worked really quickly on it. She is no stranger to the law, unfortunately, and they were able to, she actually identified herself on Facebook. She admitted that she was the one who assaulted me, and she was arrested. And obviously we will be pursuing this to the full extent of the law because she has to be made an example of. We've seen what's happened with the Tesla burning and looting. Of course, the summer of happiness and peace in 2020 is that the left loves to react with violence. They think that if you disagree with them, that you no longer are owed respect. We can just do whatever we want to your property, to you. We can even kill you. And I do believe that if it wasn't for my amazing cameraman / husband, I would have been way worse off than I was, because she was definitely coming back for more. She was obviously much larger than me. And, I'm not really a fighter, so maybe I should take some lessons, but
hey, living in New York City, it might be a good idea.
Yes.
Now, interestingly enough, obviously there were people who helped you through this emotionally and physically. What was the public response to seeing that?
Yes. Well, I did get an overwhelming support from a lot of people, including yourself. It definitely made the rounds. Almost, I think every single major media company covered it except for, CNN and MSNBC. And it was amazing. But after a few days, what started to roll in was the hatred and people in the city saying that if I see her, I'm going to finish the job. I'm going to hit her other eye. I mean, it's still going on. If you look at my comment section, there's always somebody commenting every day about how they think that I deserve to be assaulted for my beliefs.
Well, it's kind of interesting because when you look at radical Islamists, they consider themselves righteous, and anybody who opposes them is worthy of death if they won't convert. We almost see the same kind of mentality on many on the left. Rather than leaving people alone, letting people have whatever opinion they have, they feel that they must intervene somehow. And it's sort of been the history of mankind. People just can't leave other people alone. Everybody can have everything they need, but you got to go mess with them.
Right.
And, it is really a testament to yourself and others like you who can do things in a reasonable way, not get angry, not go after other people, not try to force them into your way of thinking, because that can't possibly have a good outcome in a diverse society where you have multiple opinions. My way or the highway doesn't work in a situation like that. And you got to be able to sit down and reason together with the facts on the table. But did that incident change the way that you do your on-street interviews?
Only a little bit. I now do
Now
not
you
go out
carry a
without
gun.
security. Yes, yes. Working on that for sure. It's a different process. It's a little bit more difficult in New York, but I do not go out without security now. I think it's just, I mean, it's really sad that that's what I have to do, but I just can't be taking any chances. There's always some craziness happening around the city. And now, I mean, I'm known as the girl that got punched. That's almost everywhere I go. People ask, "Are you the girl that got punched?" I'm like, "Great, that's how I'm known."
Well, people recognize you now. That may have some positive benefit in the long run.
Yes, hopefully.
Now, Savannah, can you share some of the most surprising and enlightening responses that you've received during some of these interviews?
Yes, one that I had recently, which I think you'll find funny, being a doctor, I ran into a woman who could not tell me when life begins, but yet she claimed to be a doctor. And when I really tried to squeeze it out of her, she said that life starts at viability. And I said, "Well, how is the baby growing for 20 plus weeks before viability when the heart is beating, I mean, 3 weeks after fertilization?" And there's a universal consensus that's not religious at all that says that 96% of embryologists and biologists believe that life begins at conception.
And what did she have to say about that?
She just kind of
She didn't
froze.
punch you, did she?
She didn't. She didn't. She was very nice. But there's always either a long pause or like an awkward laugh, or they start looking around wondering if somebody's going to come help them or save them.
Well, it's truly amazing because doctors learn when they're studying embryology that brain, for instance, starts developing on day one with millions and millions of neurons, later on billions of neurons. And very quickly, that zygote progresses to the point where you can actually begin to see features. And 6 weeks to 8 weeks, a heart starts beating. You start seeing little appendages starting to form. It gets progressively harder to deny that that is a human being. And, I had a situation where I operated on babies that were in the mother's womb. And it was trying to save the normal baby, but it turned out saving both of them.
Wow.
And many years later, my wife was at a banquet, and this beautiful, statuesque young woman comes up to her and says, "Are you Dr. Ben Carson's wife?" And she says, "Yes." And she said, your husband operated on me and my twin sister while we were still in our mother's womb. And there she was, a young woman, fully capable of taking care of herself. And that's why you can't convince me that what's in a mother's womb is a meaningless bunch of cells. Obviously, it's always had meaning. It's always had dignity. And, I appreciate people who go out there and fight for these babies and maintain a respectful dialogue in the process of doing that. But how do you define what it means to be pro-life, and how do you communicate that to people with a different view?
Sure. Well, I prefer to use anti-abortion just to be super clear that I'm against all kind of abortion. There's no reason that you need to intentionally end an innocent human life in the womb in order to save somebody else. And that's what an abortion does. It is intentionally killing a baby that is growing in their mother's womb. But being pro-life is more than just saying that you're pro-life. It's going out and actually acting on it, whether that looks like praying outside of an abortion facility, sidewalk counseling. You don't have to necessarily go out into the lion's den like I do and debate people every day. But going on college campuses, talking with your children and young people about life and telling children how valuable it is. I mean, it's amazing. I'll never forget one time I was on campus with one of my former coworkers, and she had her little 1-year-old with her. And she walked up to one of the fetal models and she pointed at the little 10-week one and she said, "Baby, even children know that these are babies." And then we have full grown adults and some doctors that are still confused and they're still wondering, like, well, do we really know? And so it's sharing the truth. It's being unapologetically anti-abortion because we are on the right side. There is no argument. There's no second thought of that. It is always wrong to end an innocent human life. Therefore, abortion is always wrong.
And I think most people, if they could actually see an abortion, actually see what happened during the first trimester, you're looking at that screen, you see the tube introduced. Sometimes the baby tries to move away from it before it attaches to his leg and tears it off. You see all the blood and the gore going down the tube. That's pretty gross. And later on, when the baby's developed to the point where you can't use that technique, reaching in the uterus with a forceps, grabbing whatever you can, twisting and pulling, and out comes a shoulder or a foot. I mean, it is really tearing a living human being limb from limb who can actually feel it. And yet, it's okay. It's nothing.
Right.
And
I always find it.
no, I just can't imagine how a professional, a physician who's dedicated to saving lives can even do such a thing. I don't understand it.
Absolutely. I always find it interesting whenever I go on campuses and I have abortion victim imagery, and people will come up and say that they are so upset that I have this imagery out here. And I'm like, why? If this is a woman's body, it's a woman's choice. Why are you so triggered with seeing a woman's choice? Right? Why is this so triggering to you? And I used to be someone who was very against abortion imagery until I learned the story of Emmett Till, who was a young Black boy who was killed by a bunch of white men for supposedly whistling at Carolyn Clough. She was a store clerk. Right. And he was murdered and just beaten to where he was unrecognizable. And his mother held an open casket. Exactly. And people around were like, why in the world do you want to have an open casket? Look what they've done to your son. And she said, I want the world to see what they did to my son. And so I use the same thought process when thinking about abortion, is if this is something that people think is a woman's choice, let's just show it to the world then. If it's so empowering, let's show it off. And then the people who support it can barely stand to look at it. And if you can barely stand to look at what you say you support, maybe you should rethink your position.
If you can't look at it, how can you do it? How can you allow it to be done in your society? It's amazing. Well, what misconceptions have you encountered about the pro-life / anti-abortion movement?
Yes. Well, a lot of people on the other side think that we only care about the baby until they're born, that once they're born, we couldn't care less about the child. But it's more likely for Christians and pro lifers to adopt and foster. And we also have 14 pregnancy resource centers that offer everything and more that a Planned Parenthood does, just they don't kill babies, to every one Planned Parenthood. So 14 to 1. These are people who have dedicated their lives. They're not making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They have dedicated their lives to helping women and children. I know back home in South Carolina, there's a pregnancy center local to where I'm from that literally helps a woman until her baby is 3 years old. And for some people are saying, oh, all childcare should be free. It shouldn't be so expensive. Well, the reality is that we are offering a hand up, not a hand out. We want to help women to get back on their feet and feel confident in being a mother and taking care of herself and her child. But just giving handouts, I mean, as being a conservative, that's not really what we stand for, because we want people to be individuals. We want them to be strong and support themselves. But we have a community to help women get to that point.
Well, why do you think it's so difficult to go through the adoption process, and what could make it easier?
Right. I think it's a very long process here in America. It's entirely too expensive. I think that a lot of our government is pretty greedy about it. There are over 2 million families waiting to adopt in this country. I believe it's 1 in 4 women that have fertility issues in the country. Might want to correct me on that, but it's quite a
Getting
bit of
worse.
women. Yes. So it's quite a bit of women who have issues with conceiving and want to adopt a child, but we need to make it easier, because then going into the process of IVF, that ends a lot of lives as well. And it's incredibly painful and expensive for women to go through that. So I am totally for reforming the adoption system, making it a smoother process, and connecting these babies with loving families.
What are your thoughts on the current state of the foster care system?
That also needs reforming. Absolutely. And this is something that the pro-abortion side brings up a lot of time on why we should have abortion. We got to fix the foster care system. Well, we had Roe v. Wade for nearly 50 years, and we didn't fix any of those problems. Abortion on demand, our foster care system was still messed up. There clearly needs to be a better process of vetting these parents, making sure they're not just doing it for a paycheck, and making sure that these children are connected with loving families, and making sure that the adoption process from foster care is not only a possibility, but an easier process as well.
You think community and faith-based organizations can play a significant role there?
Absolutely. I believe that every church should be speaking about this. Most people don't know where their local pregnancy center is. And that's a problem, because if a woman comes to you in crisis, or is even just contemplating abortion, has it on her mind, and you know where the local Planned Parenthood is, but you don't know where your local pregnancy center is, that's a problem. We need to make sure that women are being connected with real choices, not just the choice to kill her baby.
And I'm sure you encounter people in your interviews who talk about the foster care system and say, who's going to take care of these kids? What do you tell them?
I will. Give me your baby. I will take them. But yes, I do mention the statistic. There's over 2 million families waiting to adopt. They are willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for a child because they can't have one on their own, or they just want to save a child. And we want to help women that feel like they can't raise a child right now. And once abortion is completely abolished, that's something that the government, our state by state, our communities are going to have to focus on 100%, because there will be women that are coming to us that are going to say, I cannot have this baby. And they need to know about their local resources, because we see what happens when women don't know about their local resources. Their
Right.
babies end up in a trash can or in a dumpster or left on the side of the road. And that is what we want to avoid. Another thing I want to mention is these safe haven baby boxes that have saved countless amount of babies, where a woman, without judgment, nobody has to know, she leaves her baby at a fire station or a hospital in one of these safe haven baby boxes, and her baby will be graciously put up for adoption.
You know, there was a time in our country where people knew what the word abstinence meant. I don't think they know that word anymore. But
Nope.
what kind of reaction do you get if you ever mention that?
Oh, yes. I mentioned that. It's always funny when I mention it on college campuses because their minds like, they're like, wait, what? I can have self-control? No, 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 no. And it's like the way that I approach it is I tell the boy or the girl, your body is so valuable that it is not worth it to give your body just to somebody who doesn't love you, isn't making the marital vows and showing up for you in every single way. Your body is so valuable. And every single time that you sleep with someone outside of marriage, it's kind of like gluing two pieces of paper together. You can rip them apart once it's over, but pieces of that person and of that relationship and that bond are still going to be left over. And then you go to the next person and that rips apart, and there's still parts sticking to you. And of course, there's complete, forgiveness, and we can be reborn with Jesus. But to avoid that, it's just something that I know I'm going to tell my daughter or my son, that you are so valuable that you're not worthy to, or your body is not so just reusable in that way.
Yeah, I know when one of my sons went off to college, the girls just tormented him because he believed that, sex was for marriage. I said, what kind of Neanderthal are you? Where did you come from? But, that was many years ago. He's happily married, has children, and has formed a nice nuclear family, traditional family with the kind of environment that will lead to great children. And it's something that we have to be willing to talk about. Most people aren't willing to talk about it anymore because they don't want to seem like they're the Neanderthal. But
Right.
Part of the problem, I think, in our society is that people who have solid values have become frightened and intimidated. And that is actually a tool that is used by Marxists to control society, intimidation. And we
Right.
just have to stop and recognize that there was a reason that our country went from nowhere to the pinnacle of the world in record time. It was because of the value system. And some people say, but you don't have a value system because you had slavery. Well, anybody who knows anything about world history knows that virtually every society has dealt with slavery. And the thing that makes us unique is not that we had it, but that we had so many people who were adamantly opposed to it that we fought a bloody civil war and lost a large portion of our population to get rid of it.
Right.
Maybe we should talk about that. But there's so many things that are good about the United States of America. And we should teach everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but there's a lot more good than there is bad and ugly. And one of the good things is life, because our founding document says we have certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that those rights come from our Creator. Our very founding document says that. Why should we run away from that and be sad about it? I want to ask you, how can people find out what you're doing and how can they support you?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Instagram at Savannah A. Craven. I post a lot of quick snippets of the people that I encounter at a lot of these events and rallies. And then my YouTube channel, which I have more long form content. I go live on there, talk with guests and supporters one on one. That's Her Patriot Voice. And you can support me, help fund my security to keep me going at givesendgo.com/Savannah Craven. even just $5 helps to keep me safe.
Well, it is so encouraging to see someone like you who's willing to get out there and not be afraid, even after being attacked. It's still not a shrinking violet, and it makes a difference because we sing our national anthem all the time. It's the land of the free, the home of the brave. You can't be the land of the free if you're not the home of the brave. If you don't have people who are willing to stand up for what they believe in. And I always say you can learn a lot more from somebody who disagrees with you than somebody who agrees with you on everything. But what we have to do is learn how to live peacefully together, even if we have differences of opinion. And no two people agree about everything. I always say if somebody agrees with you on everything, one of you isn't necessary. And everybody is necessary. We have different thoughts, but let's use those to talk and reason together so we can make forward progress instead of just back and forth all the time. And do you have a final message that you want to give to people?
Yes, for anyone who is nervous or just on the fence about speaking out, I always think, if not you, then who? If a million people said, well, somebody else is going to do it, there's already people out there on the sidewalk, there's already people posting about the truth about abortion, we would not have a lot of people speaking out. And so I encourage you to at least start speaking to your friends and your family about it. Be unapologetic, because like I said before, we're on the right side. And if you ever have any questions or want to join me, you can feel free to email me or message me, and I'll help you out.
And I want to thank Savannah Craven Antao for being a courageous individual, working on behalf of the pro-life movement, and being a young person who's not afraid to take a stand. We all need to lead by example in our spheres of influence, and learning to be respectful of people who have different views, learning how to engage in dialogue and to present your case in a reasonable way without being domineering or judgmental makes a big difference. And we all can play a significant role in alleviating some of the tension that exists in our society right now over lots of different issues. And if we work together, we put the facts on the table, and we talk about solutions based on facts and not on ideology, I think we can make a lot of progress. Well, that's it for this week. Please subscribe for free, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Tell your friends about us. We need to spread the word. We need to make common sense common once again. And remember to rate us, review us, tell all your friends about us. And remember the cornerstones: faith, liberty, community, and life. We'll see you next week.